Let's talk Chimaev. I watched a wrestling video going around. I want to say I found it on like the underground forum, but it was from Chimaev's amateur wrestling days. He's in Sweden. He's wearing the singlet. He's out there. One guy's red, one guy's green. He's wrestling freestyle. So I read a couple of his accomplishments. And Chimaev was born in Dagestan, started wrestling at 5 years old, according to this article, but he moved to Sweden. He went on and became a two-time Swedish wrestling champion. He, somewhere along the way, did enter the Russian Nationals on a junior level and finished third. Now, that means something. That one, the third place in the Russian Junior Nationals. To put in American terms, that would be high school. Freshman, sophomore, junior, seniors, that's what constitutes the age of junior division. He was the third best in all the land. Now, it's the junior division that goes right into the senior level, which is equal to the Olympic Games, by example. Okay. But he wins a couple of titles for Sweden. I don't know how to put that into or categorize that exactly because it was done in freestyle. Freestyle and Sweden are not necessarily known as great wrestling. Greco-Roman and Swedish wrestlers have a pretty big history. So what do you make of being the two-time Swedish champion? Well, let's do this. Let's watch his tape. So I watch his tape, and it's a lot of double legs, wouldn't you know? Wouldn't you know, we see plenty of guys in MMA shooting double legs. Why is Chimaev's effective and why are other guys not? And there is a couple of things that Chimaev does differently from an X's and O's standpoint. But first off, he does not grab the legs. He does not hold the legs. He locks his hands behind the legs, number one. And number two, he gets his own hips in. And guys that have nice long arms, to just grab a leg is silly. You always want to close that circle, right? Your opponent's in that hoop somewhere. Make that hoop as tight as you can. That's how tight you have your opponent. People understand that concept when it comes to, say, a guillotine. When you lock your hands, your opponent's head is in there somewhere. So you get those hands really tight, you can see where that puts pressure. But the same thing goes if you're trying to control his hips and do a double leg. And it's one thing that I did notice within Chimaev's amateur wrestling days is he used a lot of double legs. All right. So what? I'm not convinced the greatest form of grappling has yet been created. I'm not sure we're there yet. Foreign athletes have never done as well in mixed martial arts as the American athletes. And the reason for that is stylistically because the country of America has something known as folk style or collegiate wrestling. The reason collegiate wrestling transfers over to MMA much more than Olympic level wrestling, and the athletes of American collegiate transfer over more than the international stars, has to do with the fact in collegiate wrestling, you are rewarded and encouraged to keep your opponent down against his will, and you are encouraged and rewarded to get up and get free of your opponent against his will. I'm seeing Chimaev taking guys down and keeping them there. That is very different than, say, a Yoel Romero. It is also in line with what Islam has been doing so well and what Khabib showed us. Now, Khabib, if you ever listen to an interview, will steer you on the wrong path because he will swear up, down, and sideways that he's doing Sambo and he's doing Judo. He's doing neither. There is zero about Khabib's game that has anything to do with Judo or Sambo, but because that's where he's from and because that's what his relatives and his own father did, he does his best to pay tribute. But he will mislead you. Very mislead you. So as I'm watching Chimaev and I'm wondering how he's being so successful, I still am stuck with double leg. Now, once he gets on top, he's doing a good job with controls. That's another conversation. If you want to deal with Chimaev, based on the limited information that we have of Chimaev, we have 4 fights, all less than 5 minutes. We do not have a lot of data or a lot that we can research and delve into as it pertains to the style and the skills of Chimaev. But we do know you have to stop double leg. And to take a Division I stud like Colby Covington or a collegiate national champion like Kamaru Usman and make believe that they can't stop a double leg is a stretch for me. And even if they can't, can they be held down by a non-wrestler? That would be weird. Their whole lives, Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington have been encouraged, trained, and rewarded for standing up once taken down, getting free, turning and facing an opponent. Chimaev comes from a sport where never once has it been encouraged or rewarded. It would be a big surprise if Chimaev could get him there and then just keep him there. But what do you do with Chimaev? Because you can't overlook him. I've got to start making comparisons to Chimaev versus Colby and Chimaev versus Usman. I have to. Chimaev is extremely likely to be fighting one of those guys next. There is a very strong case being made right now that Chimaev should fight the loser. I don't know how far that's going to go, but I'm hearing this narrative. And many people are going to be just fine if you slide Chimaev right into a championship fight. And how many other options do you have, by the way? Total studs at 170 pounds, but they're busy. They're all booked up. Leon's booked up. Luque is not booked up, but is trying to get on the docket with Nate Diaz. Who are you going to turn to if you want to do it in a timely fashion? And perhaps that's the wrong direction to look, and we're not looking to do this timely. And there's plenty of time for everything to work itself out. Okay, fair enough. But nobody's going to want to fight Chimaev. They don't want to fight them now. Unless your name is Neil Magny, you have no sincerity behind your words saying that you will do the fight or that you would like to do the fight or that you're confident that you have the skills to win the fight against Chimaev. Neil Magny, absolute exception. I want to make sure he gets his credit because he's serious. Neil is serious. One way to get a guy in there with Chimaev is to have a guy that's a little bit down on his luck. We see these guys within the UFC or within the sport of MMA that as soon as they get a little bit of momentum going in their direction, they start becoming the shot callers, or at least trying to be. They are always in the opposite position when things aren't going their way. So in many ways, if you were to look to the loser of this fight to be the next opponent for Chimaev, with everybody having a built-in understanding that nothing bad is going to happen from winning that fight. Maybe we won't come out and declare it a number one contenders fight, but we can all declare it will be the people's top contenders match. Maybe that's the direction that you look. I think to do anything ahead of this fight is premature. I think Colby Covington has a very reasonable chance to beat Kamaru Usman. I think that it is extremely reasonable that Kamaru Usman then get the chance to get his own belt back, which would mean the trilogy fight, which would mean you're pumping the brakes on everything Chimaev. So let's just see what happens. Let's let this play out. I will share with you Chimaev is special. I will share with you that even as I watch his amateur tapes, I'm not clear on how. I'm not clear what about him is different. I acknowledge it's there. But I'm going to need more. I'm going to need a little bit more evidence, a little bit more time to break his film down. I need a little bit more data. Something special's happening there. And together, we're going to figure out just what that is.